There is a moment that changes people forever. Not the moment they fail, the moment they realize the enemy was never outside them. Most people spend years believing their greatest obstacle is lack of opportunity, lack of money, lack of talent, lack of luck. But eventually, if they pay close enough attention, they begin to notice something disturbing. The pattern follows them. Different city, different relationship, different career, same fear, same hesitation, same invisible wall appearing at the exact moment action is required. And the frightening part is this: the wall feels real. Your mind presents it as logic, as caution, as intelligence. But often it is only fear wearing the mask of reason. Ancient philosophers understood this long before modern psychology existed. The Stoics spoke of it in Rome. Zen monks described it in Japan. Even warriors preparing for battle discovered the same truth, independently across centuries. The human mind is not naturally designed for peace. It is designed for protection. And protection, when left unchecked, eventually becomes a prison. I want to explain this through the story of a man named Elias. Not because Elias was extraordinary, but because he was painfully ordinary, and that is exactly why his story matters. Chapter 1. The Life That Looked Fine. Elias was the type of person everyone described as responsible. He woke up early. He paid his bills on time. He answered messages quickly. He avoided unnecessary risks. By the age of 32, he had a stable job at a consulting firm in Chicago. His apartment was clean. His routines were predictable. His life appeared organized from the outside. But internally, something was collapsing. Not dramatically, quietly. He noticed it first on Sunday evenings. A strange heaviness would appear in his chest around sunset. Not panic exactly, more like the feeling that his real life was happening somewhere else. He ignored it. Most people do. So he distracted himself the same way millions of others do. More work, more scrolling, more podcasts, more productivity systems. But distraction is temporary anesthesia, not healing. And eventually reality collects its debt. One winter evening, Elias was sitting alone in his apartment after finishing a 14-hour workday when he realized something terrifying. He could not remember the last decision he made because he truly wanted it. Every major choice in his life had been made to avoid discomfort. He chose stability to avoid uncertainty. He chose silence to avoid conflict. He chose routine to avoid failure. And suddenly he understood something that changed him forever. His life had not been built through intention. It had been built through avoidance. That realization hit him harder than any tragedy could have, because tragedies are visible. Avoidance happens quietly, year after year, until one day you wake up living a life you never consciously chose. Chapter 2. Why the Mind Prefers Misery Over Uncertainty. Around this time, Elias became obsessed with psychology and philosophy. Not motivational content, not success advice. He wanted to understand the mechanism underneath human behavior itself. That search eventually led him to the work of Carl Jung. Jung believed that human beings possess something called the shadow, the hidden part of ourselves we refuse to confront, not because it is evil, but because it is uncomfortable. The shadow contains fears, desires, insecurities, anger, ambition, regret, everything the conscious mind tries to keep out of sight. And the more a person suppresses these parts, the stronger they become. Elias found one sentence particularly disturbing. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. For days he couldn't stop thinking about it, because suddenly his entire life made sense. His procrastination wasn't laziness. It was fear of judgment. His perfectionism wasn't discipline. It was fear of failure. His constant need to stay busy wasn't ambition. It was escape, and modern neuroscience supports this idea more than people realize. The brain is constantly trying to minimize uncertainty. It prefers familiar pain over unfamiliar possibility. This is why people remain in toxic relationships, why they stay in careers they hate, why they postpone difficult conversations for years, because uncertainty feels dangerous to the nervous system. Even freedom can feel threatening if suffering has become familiar. The brain whispers, "Stay where it's predictable," even if predictable means miserable. Chapter 3. The Ancient Practice of Seeing Clearly. During his research, Elias discovered something unexpected, a small passage from Meditations written nearly 2,000 years ago by Marcus Aurelius. Marcus wrote, "You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do and say and think." At first, Elias misunderstood the quote. He thought it sounded dark, but over time he realized it was not pessimism. It was clarity. The Stoics practiced something called memento mori, remembering death, not to become depressed, to stop lying to themselves. Because when human beings pretend time is unlimited, they delay living. They postpone honesty, postpone change, postpone courage. They wait for confidence before acting. But confidence rarely arrives first. Action comes first. Then confidence follows afterward. This realization altered Elias in subtle ways. Every morning before checking his phone, he began asking himself one question. If today could not be repeated, what truth would I stop avoiding? At first, the answers were small. A conversation he needed to have, a boundary he needed to set, a habit damaging his health. But over time, the answers became deeper. He realized he had spent his entire adult life performing a version of himself designed to be accepted. And beneath that performance there was exhaustion, because pretending is heavy, especially when you do it for years. Chapter 4. The Noise Inside the Mind. One of the greatest misunderstandings about peace is the belief that peaceful people have silent minds. They do not. The difference is not the absence of thoughts, it is the relationship to them. This idea appears repeatedly in Zen philosophy. Thoughts are not the enemy. Attachment is. Elias encountered this while reading about Zen archery in Japan. Masters would train students for years not merely to hit the target, but to stop fighting themselves internally while shooting. Because hesitation creates fragmentation. Part of the mind acts, another part watches, another judges, and suddenly the person is divided against themselves. Elias realized this division existed everywhere in his life. During conversations, he was mentally replaying his previous sentence instead of listening. During work meetings, he was imagining future criticism instead of staying present. Even during rest, he was thinking about productivity. His body existed in one place. His mind existed somewhere else entirely. So he began practicing a simple discipline: full attention to the current moment. Not perfectly, consistently. When drinking coffee, just drinking coffee. When walking, just walking. When listening, just listening. At first, this felt almost impossible, because most people are addicted to mental noise without realizing it. Silence exposes what distraction hides, and many people would rather remain distracted forever than face themselves honestly for 10 minutes. Chapter 5. The Moment. Everything changed. Real transformation rarely looks dramatic in real time. There is usually no music, no cinematic breakthrough, no sudden enlightenment. Just one small moment where a person responds differently than they normally would. For Elias, that moment arrived during a presentation at work. Normally, presentations destroyed him internally, not externally. Most people never noticed. But inside his mind became chaos, self-monitoring, overthinking, fear, the familiar storm. But this time, something was different. Before entering the conference room, Elias sat alone in silence for several minutes. He noticed the anxiety, the racing heart, the tension in his stomach, and for the first time in his life, he stopped trying to eliminate it. He simply allowed it to exist. That changed everything. Because resistance had always multiplied the fear. The fear of fear itself had been the true prison. During the presentation, moments of nervousness still appeared, but they passed faster. Because he no longer fed them with internal commentary, he stayed with the present sentence instead of mentally catastrophizing the next 10 minutes. And afterward, one of his co-workers said something unexpected. "You seemed unusually calm today." Elias almost laughed. Because calm was not what happened internally. Integration happened. There was tension, but no war against the tension, and that distinction changed the trajectory of his life. Chapter 6. What the philosophers were trying to teach the Stoics, the Zen monks, the ancient warriors. They were all pointing toward the same realization through different languages. Suffering intensifies when the mind resists reality. Not all pain can be avoided, but unnecessary psychological conflict can. Most people exhaust themselves fighting their own internal experience, fighting fear, fighting uncertainty, fighting emotion. And the harder they fight, the more divided they become. But there is another way to live, a way built not on suppression but awareness, not on pretending but honesty, not on becoming fearless but becoming integrated. The mind becomes dangerous when it operates unconsciously, when fear disguises itself as logic, when avoidance disguises itself as comfort, when distraction disguises itself as purpose. But once you begin seeing clearly, the illusion weakens. And maybe that is what wisdom truly is. Not becoming superhuman, not transcending emotion, not reaching permanent peace, but finally seeing yourself without distortion and acting anyway. Because the people who transform their lives are not the people who never feel fear. They are the people who stop obeying it.